Well, thank you to my listening audience. Thanks for being here and listening in on this very important Facebook Live. I'm going to cover, again, one of my favorite topics, energy policy, because energy is the master resource. And once again, we have a power grab going on by Governor Pritzker. And anything that he does in this realm is actually going to be detrimental overall to Illinois businesses and families. It will raise your power rates for his green energy fantasies. So there's a massive, another rewrite of energy policy going through the state legislature. They've had a number of hearings on it already, but they are going to get ready to vote on it in veto session next week. Well, somebody who has been following this topic very, very closely is Senator Sue Rezin, and she joins me now to kind of articulate to people, the listening audience, what this bill entails. And we're not just doing this to hear ourselves talk. Quite frankly, we need you to be informed so that you push back against this. Does everybody remember at the end of session when they wanted to have an Amazon tax, a $1.50 tax on everything delivered at your home? The pushback was so intense, so severe that bill was never taken up in the House. And I think, quite frankly, that part of it is going to be dead. We need the same level of pushback on this energy bill. It's a huge power grab. And so I am really thankful that Sue Rezin came on today to discuss it.
Thanks for having me, Jeanne. As always, it's great to see you and talk with you. And you have been the advocate for the consumers, making sure that the legislation that is passed keeps them in mind. Obviously, we want reliable, resilient power, but we want it at the lowest cost. I mean, because at the end of the day, people, middle-class families can't afford their rates going up, their utility rates going up, along with their property taxes. And as it's fall and parents are sending their kids to school. I mean, every expense that they have, they're seeing increase. We have had several committee hearings on the energy bill. And full disclosure, you know that I have been a proponent to lift the moratorium to build out nuclear in the state of Illinois for several reasons. First of all, our energy policy portfolio currently consists of over 50% of nuclear. So we have 6 nuclear power plants built, the largest nuke fleet in the entire country, built right here in Illinois, which is, believe it or not, a huge asset for Illinois to have these nuke plants here in Illinois. But because of an archaic moratorium that was passed 30 years ago, we haven't been able to build large-scale nuclear power plants. Several years ago, I did work to pass legislation in a bipartisan manner to partially lift the moratorium to allow for small modular reactors to be built, which is great. That's a potential source, as we'll talk about in this discussion, for data centers that we see coming because of the changing economy, the AI economy. We're all on our phones using AI to write or do all of that. Well, all of that data is being stored in data centers. Data centers use power. So we as legislators are trying to figure out how are we going to fill the huge need that we see for power in the short term. And I'll give you a fact that PJM testified. I'm a co-chair of Energy for National Conference of State Legislators. That's where all of the state policymakers across the country get together, and we're discussing this topic. This is the hot topic for every state that's going on right now. But there was one slide in particular in our presentation that stuck out. The data center need currently to power data centers this year is about 4% of our energy portfolio is going to power data centers. They really aren't built out yet in the state, despite the governor's comments that they're the cause, data centers are the cause of your power going up last year. That's not true. However, the forecast, though, from PJM, which PJM is the regional market, says that by the year 2030, that will increase from 4% to 12% of our energy portfolio demand. So that's a huge increase in a short amount of time. So we do need to be talking about how do we make sure we have enough power available to not only provide for residentials, but provide for this changing economy that we see with AI, data centers, and quantum computing. So that's why you are seeing this conversation and the talk around the big energy bill. I have been a proponent because I do believe the best way, one of the best ways to provide for the future is to completely lift the moratorium on nuclear. build out large capacity, which, by the way, will not cost, that alone, my bill alone, will not cost ratepayers 1 penny. Lift the moratorium. What it does is send a message to companies who are looking to build or enter into long-term power purchase agreements, and sometimes build out. They've been bringing nuclear back online and entering into long-term power purchase agreements to pay for it. So ratepayers are not paying for it. So that's an option that we have. Unfortunately, my bill was put in this much larger energy bill that we've had 2 committees on already, 7 hours of testimony, 15 panels. I tend not to come out too early in front of bills, especially when they're large, because oftentimes they're very fluid. They change often, and I wait to see what the final product is. Here's my concern, and you said it, Jeannie. We're coming into veto session, and I am hearing from groups that are aligned with the governor's office, the Sierra Club. I had a meeting with them. I've read Cub's interview that was in Chicago Magazine. They have a call to action to get this bill passed. So we need to be paying attention. And here's why. This bill is a very comprehensive bill, 800 or 900 pages. Anytime we have a bill that's 800 pages, it's not good for ratepayers, just so you know. And it's so it does many things, but this bill is a push, and it was negotiated by the governor's staff with the governor's special interests at the table. We were not at the table. Businesses were not at the table, despite what the Sierra Club says. And I believe her when I met with her, because she was being told everybody was at the table and negotiated this bill. The Sierra Club contacted my district, and I believe her, but it's simply not true. So there's a call to action. All of these groups are out pushing these bills, but this bill was written with all of the special interests in mind, and they all get a piece in this bill. The only person that was not present or protected at the table are the ratepayers. And despite having my standalone bill of lifting the moratorium in this much, much larger comprehensive energy bill, there are several things in the bill that concern me and should concern your listeners and should concern all of the ratepayers. First and foremost, there are several kind of smaller projects that people will talk about. One is this build out for battery. We need batteries, 6 gigawatts of battery. What was interesting is, and you need batteries for ebbs and flow of wind and power during the peak part of the day from 4 to 7. Battery for long-term storage, like 4 to 7 days, has not been developed, even though I've been told it'll be 5 more years. It's just not been developed. So the battery storage we have now are for the peaks and flows to shave at the end of the day. So if your power went out for 6 or 7 days, the battery that they want to procure would not handle that. So it's a $14 billion project, according to the IPA who testified. But the Illinois Power Association put together their kind of assumptions of, despite having a $14 billion, beginning to end to build this out, it's going to save ratepayers money based on their assumptions. Now, the IPA is made up of elected appointed officials by the governor's office. So I went through the assumptions, and finally at the back of the assumptions are assumptions. At the back, they say, in their report, they said, well, we could be wrong. Well, I will tell you, when CEJA was passed, CUB testified, same thing as they're testifying now, that rates will hardly go up, it will save money. During CEJA, CUB testified that rates will only go up $3.50 on a monthly bill. Well, what we've seen is that, and CUB was asked during testimony, you testified rates would only go up $3.50 a month after CEJA was passed. But in fact, in the PJM, prices have gone up 45%. And in MISO, which is in Southern Illinois, prices have gone up 120% to ratepayers. And there was no answer. So there's no accountability when these companies and the people testifying say, your rates, it's going to be lower. It's going to be great for us. So
is there anything in this bill that protects ratepayers? Anything in the bill as it stands right now that protects ratepayers?
So, I say there's a couple red herrings in here that people will talk about. Of course, I want to get the moratorium lifted on nuclear. You'll hear them talk about the need for battery storage. These are investment bankers trying to. We all like battery, but it shouldn't be on the backs of the ratepayers. You can fund this like Texas did through loans. You don't have to fund them as a line item.
My concern there is that Goshen Incorporated, that is set to receive $536 million in tax credits from Governor Pritzker. They already have a 30-year cap on their property taxes as it stands now. Their deal was done behind closed doors with NDAs that elected officials agreed to, even though they represent taxpayers and not Goshen, but they agreed to these in an NDA. My concern is that they were supposed to be building out or assembling batteries, electric vehicle batteries in Manteno that were supposed to go to Rivian. They are now switching to doing grid scale batteries. And what we don't know about the Chinese Communist Party is they are under congressional investigation. Goshen is specifically. And on top of it, it's been determined that they also could possibly put a particular shutdown technology on things like a battery. That would not be good for us either. So when we talk 100%. About grid scale batteries, if they're the ones that are going to supply grid scale batteries to the Illinois energy market, that concerns me greatly. I don't want any of that deal going to Goshen, who has already embedded themselves into the Illinois economy, and that needs to be reversed.
Yeah, so a couple of things going on, and I agree with you 100%. Same things going on with these solar panels that we're seeing. Mm-hmm. Solar panels have like a processor in them where literally if they're produced in China, the companies or the Chinese party can take transmission or take an area down literally offline because they control those processors. So the Homeland Security is and should be a very big concern. This is happening, my friends. This isn't sci-fi. This isn't future. This is happening. And if we're allowing them to come into our state and our country and produce and tie into our logistics and electrical system, they look at warfare much differently than we look at warfare. This is part of their warfare. Control the logistics trains, control the energy grid system. And they're doing it right now. So good point. I actually have the bill that says you cannot use the solar panels from China in our country because of our concern, and we cite very specific instances. Good. Going back to this bill, and you hit the nail on the head. This bill does two things that nobody's talking about, which is the biggest boondoggle of energy that I have seen. One is it completely takes the ability for legislators to negotiate the energy policy away from the legislature or JCAR or any kind of oversight, and it gives it to the ICC and the IPA, two bodies that are appointed by the governor's office with no legislative oversight. They're only a regulatory agency. They should not have this much power. So if this bill passes, they will tell you, well, it's much easier to put in place the power that we need and the policies that we need and streamline them to make sure that we have energy available to provide for this new AI economy. They'll also say, though, within the CEJA parameters. So what does that mean? That means that we're only going to replace power with wind, solar, and battery, which, by the way, no matter what they say, is the most expensive cost of power. End of story, period. Mm-hmm. Period. All other states who are grappling with the same problem, the majority of them are going to, if they happen to have a nuclear fleet like we do, they would look at bringing nuclear back online or building an additional operating unit on the backside of the plant, or look at natural gas plants, combined cycle natural gas plants. But there is no discussion in this energy bill to change the end date that forces all natural gas offline in the very near future. So that's why your prices went up last year. It's not because of the data centers. The data center industry they're here looking. They haven't built out yet, except for one or two in the state. So they're looking. The reason your power went up last year is the capacity. Natural gas and coal plants went offline. That's the bottom line. And it's being replaced with wind, solar, and battery. That's what's happening. Now, the biggest part of this bill that you need to pay attention to is the caps that were put in CEJA in 2021. When CEJA was passed, we put the caps in there to make sure to protect ratepayers. The caps are out of this bill. No caps. So let me set this up. Natural gas is being forced offline because of CEJA. And now we're giving the power for the ICC to replenish and replace with wind, solar, and battery, okay, with no caps at a rate to get them to their goal of renewables that are set up in CEJA. There's zero protections for ratepayers here. Your rates will go through the roof like we have never seen before. I think it's the most egregious power play I have seen in 15 years. And again, I usually won't come out this much in front of a big bill until I know the bill has been cooked a little bit and we're going to hear it. But the fact that these groups are out there trying to sell the bill and everybody's like, oh yeah, this is going to save us money. I think it's important that we're out there saying this is not going to save us money. In 10 years, what will happen is people will be absolutely shell-shocked by their energy bills. And they will go to the ICC meetings when they have hearings, when their rates are going up. And guess what? The ICC, who has all the power to make these decisions, will say, talk to your legislators. They're the ones that passed the bill, because that's what they do. There's zero accountability by these people. And it's very frustrating for me, because we all are hearing from our middle class families who are getting up at 5 a.m, getting in their truck, going to work for 12 hours a day, and now have to work overtime because of bills like this that are passed that increase their cost everywhere. So I think it's important for people to understand there's always room for negotiating in a bill. I'm always hopeful. I mean, the cheapest bill to pass that doesn't cost ratepayers anything is to lift the moratorium on nuclear. Done. You know, but when you have all of this other stuff built in for special interest groups, and in a way that allows them to, I'm fine with new technology. I'm fine, but it can't be on the backs of ratepayers. There are a way to pay for these new technology that other states are using that make more sense. But unfortunately, we haven't had a seat at the table. This is a big boondoggle. This is a bill written by special interests of the governor. So.
Well, hey, thank you so much. I do appreciate your informed opinion on this bill. And I just do want to alert people. I know that it has this new thing called an integrated resource planning agency. And what is also concerning is that there's large cities like Geneva and Naperville that are part of essentially their own power supply system. And they're getting it right now from Prairie State Coal. Yep. And this bill, though, requires that any municipal power agencies or co-ops, that they have to have 40% renewal by 2030 as well, and that they have to meet the CEJA requirements as well, and be 100% carbon free by 2045. That is impossible. It's Correct. 100% impossible. And CO2 is not a pollutant. It's something we breathe out every day. So this bill, it is so over the top in terms of a power grab, when we used to have a sort of a free market. And when it came to energy in the state of Illinois, that's where we started out, I think, in 1998. And now it's completely going the opposite direction, with all this power going to the governor and his appointed or elected officials that he puts on there.
5 people.
I don't know. People need to be worried about this.
Yeah, 5 people in this bill. This is the crux of the bill. He wants to give 5 people, unelected officials, the power to determine your energy policy based off of CEJA, reduce your carbon footprint by 2045, replace with renewables regardless, and raise and alleviate the caps so the ratepayers are not protected. There is a reason that they want to raise the caps or lift the caps, is because they know that the costs will go up. That's why they're lifting the caps. We should never, I have never supported a piece of legislation, energy legislation, unless they had a cap built into it. And that's to protect ratepayers. So an egregious power play. I had somebody from, again, the environmental groups call me, and I told them about the power grab the governor wants to give to the ICC. And the person asked me, and, and I understand it. She goes, "Who's the ICC?" I said, "My point exactly. It's ICC is made up of 5 unelected officials appointed by the governor." So we need to relook at this. I know that we need to have very good discussions on energy. However, they need to include natural gas, push off the end dates, keep natural gas online, encourage natural gas to be built. That's what all other states around us are doing. So if you go to Indiana, I mean, they're looking at natural gas. They're not looking at large scale battery. All of these other states are looking at natural gas or sometimes to bring nuclear back online. So why would we be the outlier that stayed in the middle that has the additional line items to pay for, battery or transmission to come into our state when other states are bringing on lower cost natural gas to feed the new AI economy?
Okay, very good points. And the bill number is SB 25. It's House Amendment 2. It's the one that has been being discussed already in both House and Senate committees. And so SB 25, House Amendment 2, if people want to contact their legislator and tell them to vote against this bill, and I'm actually hoping that it gets stalled because there's so much more work to be done.
There's so much work to do on this. Absolutely.
All right. State Senator Sue Rezin, thanks so much for joining me.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Thanks a lot, audience. Thanks for listening.